Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. This is Multifamily Chronicles, episode number 36. I'm Adrian Danila, your host, and right here with me, we have Steve Wunch. Steve, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Adrian. It's been a long time in planning this, so I'm glad we finally got it to come together.
Very exciting, and very excited to have you. Steve, you're the Vice President uh, of Marketing and Events.
Yep.
And you're also an industry ninja. That's your title.
Yeah. My boss is very clever in his naming decisions. So I am VP of Marketing and Events for a company called Leap. And for those in the multifamily audience listening, we co-sign leases for folks who can't qualify on their own, whether they be a student or a foreign citizen who doesn't have established credit here in the US, or maybe just somebody who's, messed up their credit, or maybe they got a divorce and their ex did. We can step in and become a third-party cosigner for folks. And then we also have a security deposit replacement product that changes the typical out-of-pocket expense into a really low monthly fee that makes it a lot easier for renters to afford to move. So I think we're making a difference for landlords and for renters, both in what we do at Leap. And industry ninja just means I do a lot of stuff that I don't get paid for.
and you're also invisible. Like
yes,
things happen and you're invisible. Like people don't even know that you did that.
Exactly.
Well, part of the reason why I want to have you on a show is because obviously you're the first ninja in an industry that I'm meeting. And second of all, I want to make the stuff known to the public, right?
Yeah.
All the stuff that you can get credit for, because ninjas don't typically get that credit for working invisible.
Yeah.
So Steve, just to piggyback a little bit about your introduction, I want to ask you, your product works kind of like insurance, right?
Yes.
So the prospects where the residents are paying a certain fee, and then they're guaranteed a certain, I will say, service where
coverage, amount of coverage,
a certain coverage. Correct.
Yep. And the owner can determine the type of coverage that they want. Like if we're going to co-sign a lease for somebody in New York, a New York landlord might want to have 12 months worth of rent guaranteed. So the fee would be a little bit higher for the tenant in that respect. Somebody in Omaha, Nebraska, where it doesn't take very long to evict someone, may choose to only have 2 or 3 months worth of rent coverage. So we are very flexible. We'll customize the coverage based on what the needs are by property or by market, whatever the owner needs us to do. But yeah, it is an insurance policy or insurance coverage that we offer. No cost to the owner operator, because the tenant, of course, pays for all of our service up front or monthly. And we guarantee the rent, so it's a win-win for everybody.
That's quite an interesting concept, Steve. How can landlords and operators get a hold of you personally or your company? Let's start by.
It's real easy. If they go to www.leapeasy.com/landlords, they'll be able to see all of our product. There's good descriptions there. They can send a contact to our sales team, or they can reach me directly. Steve@leapeasy.com is my email address. I'm also pretty active on social, especially LinkedIn, and you can find me there as well and send me a message, and I'll be sure to connect you with the folks on our sales team that handle those new accounts and questions.
Steve, you've been around for a long time in a multifamily industry. Share a little bit about your background with the audience, please.
Sure. Yeah. Next year, actually, Adrian, I'll be 30 years in the multifamily space. I started leasing apartments in 1993 in Atlanta, and have worked for lots of different operators all over the country. I've moved a lot for work. My mom thought I was in the witness protection program. I was moving so much. But I've worked in markets, from Florida to New York, Boston, DC, Chicago, Texas, California, Colorado is where I'm at now. And I love, multifamily is an industry that you probably don't necessarily aspire to join when you're young. I always often ask when I speak, how many people in the audience, wanted to be a property manager when you grew up? And I don't get very many hands raised. But when I ask the question, how many of you just kind of fell into property management? That's where the hands go up. And that was kind of what happened to me. I was actually singing on a cruise ship, came home from the cruise ship, and my roommate had skipped out. And I went down to the office to talk to the manager. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a roommate, didn't know what I was going to do. Rent was going to be late. And she said, "You should lease apartments for us. You'd be great." And that was kind of the beginning of a long and very well-loved career that I'm still happy to be a part of.
Well, definitely, you're a great name in this industry.
Thanks.
Everybody that I'm connected with pretty much knows of you, at least if they don't know you personally. And I had the opportunity to meet you, was it last year at a trade show in Atlanta?
At the Atlanta trade show,
for the first time. That was a great experience to get to meet you in person.
You and me and Tara Samuels was there as well.
Yeah, that was such a trade show. So Steve, tell us a little bit about your role as a vice president at Leap Easy. Like, what do you do in the role of vice president of sales?
I'm vice president of marketing, not sales.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, I don't want a different job. I like what I'm doing. So, I came aboard with my company Leap. It was a year, April 12th. So a little more than a year, not quite a year and a half, in a sales role. Ultimately, didn't want to stay in a sales role because I think my skill set's better used in other verticals like marketing and training. And I've just really been primarily focusing on raising awareness through social media platforms about Leap and our products and our customers, doing a lot of internal, marketing as well for clients, creating collateral and things for those partners that we, partner with already, and making sure that they have the latest and greatest collateral to share with their customers, as because we really rely on the property teams a lot to share about Leap and our product with those folks who come to apply for an apartment. Maybe they don't qualify, and then a leasing consultant can say, well, hey, here's a program called Leap, and if you can get qualified with Leap, then we can continue with your application and get you moved in. So we provide them with collateral, but a lot of social media. I'm real prominent working on. I'm on LinkedIn like it's my CRM most of the day. I follow companies that we're interested in winning business with and companies that we currently partner with, and I comment on their posts. I share information that's industry specific through that platform, and I also share things that are happening at Leap as well, new products, new employees, and those types of things. And then I also coordinate events. So in addition to the marketing piece, I, take care of all the conferences that we attend, make sure that the booths get sent to the right place and returned to the right place, and get swag shipped out so that we've got some good stuff to give to folks when they do come by the booth to visit us at those trade shows. And that's, that keeps me pretty busy most of the time.
Steve, you're also a national speaker and professional facilitator in leadership. I want to ask you a question. This is a personal curiosity of mine. Are we living a leadership crisis in a society in general? And then the second question, a follow-up question to that is, how do we as an industry fare against the society in general? Are we doing better from a leadership perspective, or we're just, having some catching up to do with our society in general?
I think it's a blanket answer for both questions. There's always room for improvement when it comes to leadership. I don't want to get political or anything on this podcast, but I think, whatever culture you want to create, whether it's in a country or a company or, a church or a school, that culture is created and is tended to by the folks that are in positions of leadership. And, when I entertain a potential new client who I might consult with or speak for, I always want to know about the culture, and I want to know what their vision and mission statement are, because that tells me a lot about the company and the direction that they're headed. If they've got core values, that's really important as well. And you'd be surprised how many companies can't articulate what their vision and mission is. They don't necessarily have core values in place. I mean, they think they do, but they really haven't, made them a real, like, I think core values need to be a living, breathing member of the team. And in a lot of respects, I think across the board, companies and industries could use some finessing of those skills and really work on speaking their leadership language a little bit more clearly to people. Now, there are a lot of multifamily companies that have done a really great job of executing those core values. Equity Residential being one that I worked for about 7 years. They've got a vision and a mission that aligns their strategy. Sometimes it changes from year to year, but it's very clear. And they've also got 10 core values that really help team members understand how they should act as a member of the team at Equity, and it really helps them to do their job more effectively. So I think, the broad answer is there's room for improvement, but there should always be room for improvement because leadership should always be evolving, growing, and changing in an organization or in a country or a church or whatever. I hope that answers your question.
I'm glad you're mentioning, evolving, because we as human beings, we tend to believe if we're in a good situation right now, we got to hold on to it, and that better not change for us. Without actually looking outside, that the reality is different. Everything changes all the time.
Yep.
Is that saying that, you don't step in the same river twice?
That's true.
Because everything changes, everything evolves. Even us, as like from a physical perspective, we evolve, we change all the time. We're not the same person that we were 5 minutes ago.
So and even if you step in that river, you've changed the river because now your step has caused the river to flow in a different direction. And so I don't think people realize, the decisions that you make on a daily basis in how you operate your company or how you lead your folks or how you execute your job if you're a leasing consultant or a service tech on the property, that can change the course of direction for, your success or your failure or your growth.
It's a great point. And it also says a lot about the power that you have as an individual to change course.
No matter what role you play on a team. And if we're, if our main audience is multifamily peeps, I don't care if you're a groundskeeper or a housekeeper or a maintenance tech or a maintenance supervisor or a leasing consultant, assistant manager, property manager, general manager, regional manager, or president or CEO. What you do every day has the potential to change the course of direction for your individual success, your team success, and ultimately, maybe the direction that your company goes.
And I will add here, and not necessarily argue, but I will say, even if you don't do anything, you're still affecting change just by being passive, because things will happen whether you take action or not.
That's
even
right.
your inaction is still, some sort of an action, I will say.
That's a decision that you've made.
There's still effects. It still has an effect on what's happening, even when you choose not to do anything about a particular situation.
Yeah, agreed, 100%. I talk a lot about a growth mindset, and a lot of folks are in that fixed mindset because what we do here works. If it's not broke, let's not fix it. But the world is changing rapidly around us. And, the last couple of years have really been a good example of how the world change can impact what we need to change as well. I think that multifamily partners were kind of pulled through that technology knothole in the fence that we've been looking through thinking, oh, well, maybe we'll get there someday. And then all of a sudden, boy, we got yanked through that because of COVID. And you either change or you die. I really believe that 100%. So you're speaking my language.
It's so true. There's so much true. And I love that you're bringing up the growth mindset. I'm looking at the static approach versus the dynamic approach. Static is like, I want to be where I'm at because this is where it feels great. And the reality is, that's limited. No matter how much you want to hold on to what you have, you're not going to hold on to it forever. It's more of an illusion. It's more in your head. It's better to adapt and overcome situations versus than, trying to stay in the same place where you're at from a mental perspective too. Because I think everything really starts with a mental, and then the physical stuff around you follows, right?
I agree.
Keep being in the same mindset and expect that things won't change. And then before you know, like you said, you don't evolve, you die.
Yeah, or stay in the same mindset and expect things to be different. I mean, that's the definition of insanity.
Yep.
Is to do the same thing the same way and expect a different result. You're crazy. Yeah, so I agree. I think about that a lot. Oddly enough, a real random trivial information for you here, but I play a game on my phone quite a bit, Harry Potter spells and puzzles. And I try the same puzzles over and over, and I'm don't get them done. And then I think, well, I've been doing the same thing. So if I change what I do on the puzzle, boom, I actually can solve it and get through the game. It's the same thing in life. If you're up against a struggle and you're trying to go at it the same way all the time, and you're in that non-growth mindset or that fixed state, you're never going to be able to get through that hurdle or get over that hurdle. Once you step outside of what you're comfortable with and you try something different, coming to Leap, I hadn't been in a sales role before. I hadn't, I was a multifamily training and support specialist for 25 years, but I, put myself in a position where I could try something new. And it's opened up a whole lot of opportunities for me that I would have missed otherwise had I stayed in that place that was comfortable and safe. So yeah, I hear you.
Steve, for those of you that follow you on social media, especially LinkedIn, you're a cheerleader for others, for everybody else. You're always the first to congratulate them, for a new job, for a promotion, and also share their success with the world. I want to ask you, what drives you to do that? And then what drives you in general? Like, what's your drive? Where is your drive coming from?
Well, I wish I could acknowledge everyone's successes. LinkedIn is a tough platform to navigate because you only see what your filters will show you, whether it's the top posts or the most recent posts. And I probably spend more time in there than I should. But I do want to see people succeed. And, having been in a training and support role for, most of my professional career, I'm all about being in the background. The trainers at companies, those of you that are trainers at companies, you don't get a lot of kudos and you don't get a lot of spotlight because you're constantly shining the spotlight on other people. And so I think that's kind of been my motivation, is to be able to shine the spotlight on folks. It's just kind of, I think it's part of my DNA to be a supporter, to be a proponent, to be that cheerleader that's out there rooting people on, because the world is a tough place, and we've seen that probably more in the last few years than we have ever before. And I just appreciate all the hard work that the folks that work on sites do. I mean, I've been in their, I think because I've been in their shoes and sat in their seats and done their jobs, I know what it's like to, have a hard customer that you're working with, or getting yelled at by somebody for something that's happened at the property, and how you feel. And when somebody can come behind you and be like, "You're doing a great job, keep going, don't give up," they may appreciate that. I hope they do, because I sure get a lot of joy out of being able to share other people's successes and other people's, journeys as well. So that's kind of, I guess, what motivates me to get out of bed every day, is to shine the light on the good things that are happening in the world, that hopefully will overshadow and shine out the bad stuff that's happening as well.
Let me tell you, you're doing a great job at
it. Thanks. If only that could be my full-time job, that would be awesome. Got a lot of other stuff to do.
So true. Steve, LinkedIn came up in our conversation a couple of times already, and I want to get your take on the platform, and then I want to ask you to share your personal experience about the power of this platform, and how can it be used to help you build your personal brand.
It is the golden fleece, or the holy grail of personal brand and strategy in that respect, from my perspective. I have been on LinkedIn for a long time, since the early 2000s, or maybe even a little bit before. And, I didn't ever really realize how predominant my presence was until I was at NAA maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And a person that was at the conference walked by me, Melanie, she's from Gables, and she said, "Hey, I just wanted you to know how strong your personal brand is and how much I appreciate what you put out there." And I had never really had anybody say that to me before. And it really kind of was an aha moment in terms of like really understanding, hey, people are paying attention to what you're putting out there. And no matter how small you might feel, your reach is so great on LinkedIn. And I especially find that when I post something and if I tag other people, like I posted, I was at Optech a couple of years ago, and I posted a picture. I'd taken a picture with Sharon Woodring, well, that's her maiden name. I can't remember what her married name is. She was at CF Lane at that point, and a couple of other folks that were at other companies. And then when I tagged them, all of a sudden, I see my post has been viewed by like 13,000 people. And that's because I tagged those other people. So that's a strategic move to make. And that's why LinkedIn sometimes will say, "Hey, you've got a lot of activity on this post, but if you mention someone, you might get more return on investment." So, I really want to leverage those relationships that I've built in the physical world as well as the virtual world. There's a lot of people that I've known on LinkedIn for years that I've never met in person. A few of them I have been lucky enough, like you. We made a connection on LinkedIn virtually for a couple of years before we were, lucky enough to meet up in person at the Atlanta Trade Show. And, that happens all the time. But I really think that, be authentic, be consistent. I'm pretty authentic, and I'm pretty, transparent about whatever's happening in the world or my life or my work, because I believe there's a lot of value in authenticity, and people resonate with folks that are real and personable. But also supporting other people and being a proponent of, I cheer Mike Wolber on all the time, and he's a competitor to Leap in some respects now, because they've got some products that might compete with us in the future. But I'm still a proponent of the folks that I know and work with and have admired for such a long time. And LinkedIn has landed me. I've gotten 2 jobs from LinkedIn. I got a job at Knock through LinkedIn, and I got a job at Leap through LinkedIn. Literally, that's the only place that I was connected with folks that were hiring at those 2 companies, and it was a real win for me. So there's a lot of power in that platform for sure. I could probably talk for another 30 minutes on all the different things that I can see and do there.
I'll love for you to take all the time that you need, because I think in general well, I won't generalize, but I say not everybody understands the power of this network. The real power behind it, the engine behind it is something huge. My personal experiences are very similar as yours. I got my current job and my previous job from being on LinkedIn and from being connected with individuals that were at the company. They weren't even the hiring managers. Yeah. They saw me on a LinkedIn. They thought that there was an opportunity with their company, and they went out of their way to introduce me to a hiring manager that I spoke with, and I secured the job. So like it goes such a long way. And again, your experience with running into folks that you never met, and they're telling you, "Hey, you're all over LinkedIn. I'm reading your posts." You don't realize, because they're individuals that you never really interacted with on a platform. I have individuals that introduce themselves to me. They never, I couldn't tell them by name, right? Because they never like or comment on my posts. So they're, in the thousands of, views that I'm getting, I just don't know. And there's a lot of consumers of the content that way that are just out there, like consuming the content. They don't really, I guess, like, or they're not comfortable, or they just don't care about interacting, but they do read your content. Yeah. And that's very powerful to be known that way, right?
Yeah. My current boss, Adam Meshiko here at Leap, We were not connected on LinkedIn. He had seen me speak at the Denver, the AAMD TechCon in 2020, I believe, was one of the last in-person events that we did here before COVID. And then when I got let go from Knock, I got on LinkedIn, even while I was, finishing off my conversation with HR on one laptop, I was on my personal laptop changing my LinkedIn frame to open to work. And like literally, I kid you not, 12 minutes or less later, Adam pings me and he says, "Hey, I'd like to talk to you. I've seen you speak. I think there might be a role for you here at our company. And I've now been here for a year and a half, loving it, loving what I'm doing, thinking we're making a difference." And that all came from him paying attention to what I was putting out there. He wasn't necessarily a first or second level connection even at that point, but he'd see me speak. He started paying attention to what I was posting. And the rest is history. So I really encourage folks, like if you're a small operator and you don't have budget for a recruiter, man, the best place to recruit people is on LinkedIn. Watch their posts, look for people in your geography, find if you've got competitors in your market, start following those companies and the people who are working at those companies and what they're posting. You can poach some really great talent out there just based on what you can find at LinkedIn. And I think probably the person that I most admire in the not only from a recruiting perspective, but also just from a creating a great company culture, brand identity on LinkedIn is Jennifer Staichokis at where is she at? CW Wealth.
Western Wealth.
Western Wealth. Yeah.
Yeah.
She and Jen Picotti, who I love from Swift Bunny, they did a session at the Multifamily Social Media Summit in Napa earlier this year, and really talked about how they've leveraged LinkedIn to promote their company culture, to share that they're getting shit done. That's one of their catchphrases at Western Wealth. And Swift Bunny had the data to back it up. So it really it's a proven platform, not only for engagement from a professional perspective, but to promote your company. I remember at Knock, when I was trying to win the business of one particular client, I really believe in intentional marketing. So don't pitch slap me after you request my connection on LinkedIn. A lot of vendors are prone to connecting with you on LinkedIn, and then the first message you get is, "Hey, can we put some time on your calendar? I don't even know what you do, but I want to waste your time." But this company was very intentional about what they were posting on LinkedIn, and I was following them because I wanted to win their business. Notice I was following them. I wasn't messaging. I was commenting, "Oh, wow, this is amazing. Love your leadership style." And I think Leslie Price is the president of MC Companies. That was the company that I followed. And she posted something really intentional and thoughtful during COVID, thanking her team for the work that they were doing. And I just, said, you're a boss I'd like to work for because of how you're treating your team. And I really appreciate what you've done. And that's ultimately ended up in, being able to win their business at Knox. So that's a good example of there's so many ways you can leverage that platform, from hiring to recruiting to promoting company culture to winning new clients and business, just by how you show up every day on that platform. Because people, to your earlier comment, you may not know it, but people are watching. And, I pay for an upgraded subscription so that I can see some of the analytics around, if I get a large post, a lot of people viewing a post, I'll dig in and it'll show me, what companies and what positions in the companies are looking at my stuff, and what geographies, what states are they in. And that really is helpful to, an operator or a business owner or a sales rep or an SDR trying to drive new traffic to the sales team. You can get a lot of great insights from LinkedIn, and they've got a great learning platform. A lot of training professionals that I know of are now leveraging LinkedIn Learning as part of their strategy for training their teams at their properties. because they'll have a leadership class that we wouldn't have content for at our company. So I can enroll my peeps in some training on LinkedIn, and it's amazing what you can do on the platform. I have not been paid by LinkedIn to tell you how awesome it is.
I haven't been paid by LinkedIn either, and I will tell you that I'm as big fan as you are, and I see the results. I'm not selling anything currently to my connections, but just the level of interaction and the relationships that you build on a platform, there's no price to put on that. In real life, in all reality, you would never be able to create so many meaningful relationships. I actually have, I wanted to say, and I never thought this would be even possible. If someone would have told me like 10 years ago, hey, you're gonna make friends on internet, and actually you're gonna be so close to exchange like behind the scene information, I will say, you're absolutely crazy. Do you realize what you're just saying? And this is exactly what's happening to me. I have individuals that I never met in person yet. I'm hoping to in the near future, but then we became, I'll say, friends, right? And I'm not using this word lightly. Like we're very, very close, behind the scenes. Like it's not something that my connections are seeing on my posts. Behind the scenes, direct messaging between me and those individuals, they're very meaningful conversations and very meaningful exchanges. And it's all with the purpose of like making each other better, exchanging this type of information, and what can we do to better, to better serve, to better help our connections on a platform. It's truly an amazing, from a professional standpoint, there's no other platform to my knowledge that comes even close to the impact that LinkedIn has. I think people should really look into investing. I won't say spending, because when you spend, it's kind of like, hey, people think next, well, I wasted the time, right? I spend this time, all this time. You invest time on LinkedIn because you would learn a lot, you will educate yourself a lot, and it doesn't have to be the LinkedIn learning, but you learn a lot about human behavior. You learn a lot about relationships. You learn a lot about what's working. You mentioned sales approach. So when it comes to recruiting, you also mentioned recruiting, right? And I want to take get your take on it. I'm a big proponent and believer in the fact that recruiting should be approached as sales. When you're actually advertising a job, an open position, an opportunity, you're trying to basically sell a product to your potential audience. Do you agree or disagree?
No, I agree completely. And where recruiters misstep, I think, a lot is they just sell the job. Here's the job description, here's the benefits, but they don't take the time to really sell the culture, the camaraderie, the collaboration that happens within the organization, how awesome, they treat their company, their teammates. And, there are benefits outside of salary and medical, vision, and dental that people are looking for. I look at the total compensation as, what kind of company is it to work for? And I think, LinkedIn can be a place that you can leverage. I know that Western Wealth does this very well, leveraging, letting people know what kind of company it is to work for, not just here's the job. Are you interested? Here's the salary. A lot of people want to know the salary, but there's way more to what people are looking for. And LinkedIn is a great place to create that platform for sure.
There's also the fact that most recruiters, I'll say most recruiters that are showing in my feed, they're basically using some pre-made cookie cutter type of ads with just a little bit of information about the job, but they're not really getting, I hate to say, because, like this is such a word that's being overused in the industry. They're not getting creative. They don't take a few minutes to say, what's so special about the job and what makes this position special by comparison with the 50 other that are flooding my potential candidate feed. How am I differentiating myself, my company, this particular position from the other 50 they're showing in their feed? And I think this is where they're missing out a lot. A little bit of authenticity, a little bit of like just being different, like not use the same Canva just changing, like, just changing
Yeah.
the position and, a couple of words, and make that like you're running all the time Canva. I'm seeing, the same ad, seems like it's the same ad goes.
I mean,
I,
there
I,
is
I, I never pay attention. I end up like just not paying attention. I just scroll right past.
Yeah. I mean, there is something to be said for brand standards and being, being true to your brand, and some of those templates that are created out there have been designed to keep, messaging consistent and brand standards in place. But yeah, I think, I'd like to see people leveraging, like, some of the posts that I've gotten the best responses from have been some of the video posts that I've done. Back when I was at Knock, Jordan Greek and I used to always do these little video posts, and I, kind of gotten away from that. I need to get back to it, because, that really is an opportunity for people to not only just read your words, but to also see kind of who you are as a person and hear what you're passionate about. And, what better platform for a recruiter than to share, from a video instead of a post about a job saying, hey, I've got a really great job in Philadelphia. It's a great city. It's a city of brotherly love. That's a lot about what our company stands for. We really support one another and create a collaborative environment here at my company. Here's the job role. If you'd be interested, I'd love to connect with you. Click below and let me know if you're interested, or send me a message. It's easy to be different. And I think that that's what a lot of people are looking for. And you use the word authenticity a couple times there too. It doesn't have to be perfect. A lot of times what I did a video for Florida Apartment Association, and I went to say www.leapeasy.com and www.faaconference.com, and I messed it up, but I left it in because I think people like to see your humanness. So it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be real.
I really think people are being turned away from the perfect sanitized content, the content that's, overly edited. And like you said, I understand the brand situation that, you have to keep it brand consistent. But when it gets to a point that it all looks like plastic, it's like it's made out of plastic. Like it's nothing. There's no soul in it. They look great, but they're plastic products. Like you can't, like, you can't chew on a plastic. You can't, like, it doesn't give you any type of feeling. It lets you, like, it just passes by. And a good explanation is, well, a good, I guess, argument for just being creative, being out of the box, is that TV channels audiences are dropping. They've been dropping for many, many years, while YouTube viewership, it's like through the roof. And I'm not talking about just younger generation, even older generation. People prefer to watch unedited raw content versus sanitized plastic, like, TV shows. It's just the reality.
One of the big topics of conversation at the social media summit was user-generated content. So people watching leasing teams, palling around in the office and high-fiving one another and jumping into the pool and being crazy and having a good time at work. That really resonates with folks. And it's not just, to your point, it's not just Gen Z. It's all generations are interested in making real connections with real people or real companies, and getting that raw, unadulterated, authentic kind of perspective on who they are and what they stand for.
I totally agree. And I want to make a little bit of use this as a little bit of a segue and ask you the next question. My next question is very related to what we just discussed, right? You said user-generated content. So typically, you would like to have people that want to post. Like, if you make it a job description and you say you must post, authentic videos twice a day, most people will not, because it's not who they are.
Yeah.
So then the next thing that you want to do is to look for people that actually, like, this is who they are, part of who they are, that they're excited about putting a video with themselves doing something silly at work, right? So you hire them that way. And then the question that comes from that, taking it one level up from just user generated content, influencers, industry influencers. Do you see a benefit in companies hiring industry influencers?
We talk about this quite a bit at Leap because, one of our biggest markets is the student housing market. And, students are on Instagram. They're following, I heard yesterday Kim Kardashian has like 335 million followers, so she's definitely an influencer. I think it depends. It depends on what you want to achieve. Because not everyone is motivated by someone of influence on those platforms. But if your demographic is, like ours, a student demographic, they do pay attention to, Insta people who post on Instagram and what they share. We've done a couple campaigns where we've leveraged what we would call influencers, people who have like a benchmark specific minimum number of followers in the markets that we're interested in working in or working with. And, we've seen some benefit, but again, it's just, you have to know your audience. I think that's the most important thing. You'll see on LinkedIn, a lot of times there's been a lot more personal stuff that's started to appear on LinkedIn, which is great, I think, because then you're really getting to know the person. I think one of the best people I know in the business, especially in multifamily, is Tony Sousa at RPM. He posts leadership stuff. He posts pictures of his kids coming off the field at a game that they lost with a pout on their face and talking about, how as a parent, I help him through that, that moment. And it's not a loss. It's a win if you learn from what you didn't do right during the game and you change your strategy next time. I think he's one of the best in our multifamily family that does that well. But, you really have to know your audience. I think that's the most important part of whatever platform you're looking at, whether it's Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever it might be. Who's your target audience? What matters to them? You mentioned a lot of the companies in multifamily require that the leasing team post a certain number of posts every day. And, we'll see they'll post recipes, or they'll post, a recipe at a property that's downtown where most people don't cook because they eat out and socialize all the time. So a recipe doesn't resonate with who the resident is, right? So again, you really have to understand your audience and be very intentional about the messaging that you pick. You'll hear a lot of marketing people talk about personas, and you need to know who the personas are that you're targeting. If you're targeting residents at a property, who are they? What do they like to do for fun? What's important to them? Social, environmental, governance, SEG is important. So, you really just have to spend some time doing your homework. Don't just start putting stuff out there to be compliant. I would much rather you be committed and spend a few hours doing your homework up front and then posting stuff that really matters to who's watching, versus being compliant, checking the box. I posted 3 things, I'm done, and you don't get a return for the work that you put out there. I hope I got a little distracted on that one. I hope I didn't mess up your question.
No, you didn't mess it up at all. It's very enlightening, right? Don't go through the motions. Like you're better off if you're not doing anything.
Right.
There are situations where like doing nothing, it's actually the best.
Right.
The thing for you. Like if you don't have anything to say meaningful to the audience, like to your audience or the one that you're trying to reach to, it's better to not say anything, because you probably do more harm than good.
I would agree 100%. Yeah.
Something that has nothing to do with your audience.
The best word I can say is intention. You have to have the right intention and know your audience. And if you get those 2 things aligned, you'll be surprised at the results that you'll get. And if you don't take the time to get those 2 things aligned, you'll be disappointed in how much time you've wasted.
I love it. Steve, I have a few rapid fire questions. Ready?
Okay. I'll have rapid answers. I'll be concise. I promise.
You could take as much time as you have, based on your availability in general on time. Like rapid fire doesn't necessarily mean that I expect a quick answer or a very short answer, right?
All right.
So books, what are your favorite books? Fiction, nonfiction, professional books?
The 5 Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace. It's one of my favorites. I read the Miss Pettigrew's School for Peculiar Children. The whole series is a lot of fun for fiction. I'm a big Harry Potter fan, and I'm also a big Brene Brown fan. I've got a few of her books on my shelf to be read. Dare to Lead is one that I'm getting ready to jump into. And then on LinkedIn, oddly enough, I saw some folks talking smack about a book called Intention. Let me make sure that's the right name of it here. I've got it in my Kindle here. Zach from Rent Grata made mention of it. I think Mike Wolber might have made mention of it. It's called Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion by Robert Cialdini. That's the book that I'm reading virtually on planes and trains and automobiles when I'm driving.
Next question. How did a failure or apparent failure set you up for future success?
So as a trainer, you should always have a destination in mind. Like, here's where we are and here's where we need to get to. And I need to make sure that my conversations and activities during class time lead in that direction. Well, I thought I was going to be real smart at equity one time. And I went in with this idea that we were just going to have an open agenda. And it turned into a shit show. It became a bitch session. I mean, it was terrible. And the regional manager in the area got wind of, I even had people in the class say, "This is terrible. Y'all are you're bringing me down. I'm going to leave." And through that failure, I was able to really build a strong rapport and relationship with that particular regional manager. And she had struggled with engagement in her region, which is part of the reason I was down there trying to make this class work. But it ended up working out really well because we became great partners. I admitted my failure and asked for forgiveness and said, I've learned from that mistake. Let's not go there again. But what can we do now to, repair, the damage that was done? And it turned out to be a win in the end because she was able to raise her engagement scores. She began to listen to her people more than she did in the past. And that was a really great learning experience for both of us.
This is wonderful advice. Mistakes are nothing but learning opportunities.
Yeah. Failure is not the end of the story unless you let it be.
Right. Unless you decided to be.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Steve, what advice would you give to a young person ready to enter the workforce, ready to enter the real world?
That's a broad question. I would say, don't think about what you want 5 years from now. Think about what you want right now. What's going to be good for you, whether you're just coming out of school, this is your first job. What do you want to see happen right now or in the next, year? I think a lot of, I remember job interviews. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I think that's such a stupid question to ask because so many things can change in the next 5 years. And I might not even want to be in the same job or same field or same, vertical, whatever. So I think know what you want for the next year and try to achieve that. Look for companies, look for jobs that are going to appeal to who you are today, what matters to you, what aligns with your values and your personal brand, who you are. And once you find that company, work hard and ask for opportunities. Don't be quiet. If you're bored, don't just get by, get busy. Find opportunities to grow your skills, stretch yourself, I put myself out there. I'm old now. I'm 54 and I'm still putting myself in positions that I'm not comfortable with because by being uncomfortable, I have to learn to do things differently and new. And I think you always want to challenge yourself. So there's my long and drawn out answer.
Very well said. There's no growth coming out of a comfort zone. You have to make yourself uncomfortable.
Yeah. And I would say too, don't listen to imposters. I have imposters in my head all the time. You're not a marketing professional. You don't have a marketing degree. You don't know anything about marketing. And that really can debilitate you or paralyze you, because if you start to listen to those voices in your head, Instead, say, I'll be the first to admit I don't know marketing, and that's my job here. So my boss will tell me about something that's a marketing phrase or a marketing technique, and I'll be like, I have no idea what that is. Can you tell me? Instead of sitting back and being like, oh God, I don't know what that is, and then I internalize it all and I try to figure it out myself. I'm just shooting myself in my foot, but I put myself out there, say, you got to remember, I don't have a marketing background, so help me understand what is that and how can I make it happen? And those are, don't be quiet, don't listen to the voices in your head, and challenge yourself.
Steve, in the last 3 years, what belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life?
In the last 3 years, I would have to say balance. I left operations to, and I might get a little emotional here, to take care of my mom. Sorry, give me a second. And I needed balance in my life. So working on the supplier partner side, I was able to work from home. I was able to take care of her during the day as well as my job until it became, she became more than I could manage. And unfortunately, we lost her on the 30th of August to dementia. But, I think balance is important, not just for me and in those circumstances, but, in the last 3 years, I had to find a place. And, this is just an example of how everything happens for a reason. I left a job in operations, really didn't have a plan. I was going to start my own company, and then COVID put the kibosh on that. But then I got hired by Knock. I was able to work from home, loved the job, loved the company. The culture was great, and could still manage mom. And then even when Knock let me go and Leap hired me, I'm still home. I'm still able to manage that important part of my life while still being professional, still being able to put myself out there and do the things that I love. So I think for me, it would be balanced over the last 3 years. That's been kind of my saving grace.
I'm truly sorry for your loss, Steve, and
Thanks.
thank you for sharing with the audience, because it takes a lot. It's not an easy thing to tell your story, but I think it's a wonderful thing for those of us watching this statement, is to see that we're ultimately humans.
Yeah.
We go through this stuff, and we never plan for it. We never sign up for it, but we step in when we need to, and then we make adjustments, for the loved ones, for ourselves, for our health, for whatever the reasons might be. And we have to adapt and overcome. We had to adjust. We had to make significant adjustments. Like you said, it wasn't necessary that you plan for it, but you had to do it because you got to take care of your mom. And then you learn that there's more to it than just what you used to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. For sure.
And I think that's ultimately a wonderful thing. I switched from operation to the, I'll say, vendor partner side recently, back in December, and honestly, I never really thought about it seriously until my current company reached out to me, and it's been a great ride so far. So
we even used to call it the dark side.
I call it the bright side.
Yeah, I do too, for sure.
I call it the bright side. I think keeping an open mind is really a big deal. And it was a learning personally, personal experience and personal story was a very tough thing for me to keep an open mind. I knew what I knew. I didn't want to, accept like new stuff in, and it was a very, very painful life for me, honestly, until I realized that is not the way to go. If I wanted to grow, I wanted to become a better person, first of all. So thank you for sharing. That was very powerful.
Sure. Thanks.
Steve, when you feel that you lose focus or you feel overwhelmed, how do you get back on track?
I get away from my desk. I take a walk. I go outside. Or I sometimes just go in the living room and turn on the news or turn on the TV for a few minutes and just kind of clear my head. And then I can get myself back into the right space to go back and hit it head on. But I think, especially, those of us that work from home, I mean, easily 4 or 5 days can go by easily. And I haven't even looked outside. I mean, we had some step challenges at Leap to keep our team moving and active. And there would be weeks during the challenge where one of my leaders would say, "You've only had like 147 steps this week. Are you alive?" And so you have to make a conscious decision to get up and move. And I think that that's a recommendation that I would make to everyone, no matter what role they play. I remember at Echelon, Pam in HR, she'd go for a walk every day. And if anybody needs to get away from their desk, it's our poor HR people dealing with employee issues all the time. And she'd come by my desk and say, "Come on, let's go for a walk." And we'd just get outside and we wouldn't even talk about work. We'd talk about everything else but work. And then we'd, all of a sudden you've got a breath of fresh air, you've got new energy, you're refocused. So that would be my recommendation for sure.
It's actually one of the things that I do. I get up at 4:30 in the morning and I walk.
I don't get up early, no way.
I walk for, typically my goal is 75 minutes. And sometimes it's raining and sometimes it's cold, sometimes it's hot, but I stick to it and I make myself uncomfortable on purpose, because if you start your day very uncomfortable, the rest of the day, chances are, is gonna feel like a piece of cake, the rest of the stuff that you deal with at work, right? That's just my thing. But
sounds like the eat the frog principle. The thing you
Yes.
don't like to do the most, do it first.
Yes.
Getting up early and going for a walk.
Steve, now that we're approaching the end of this conversation, I'd like to give you the opportunity to share something that you're very passionate about, something that you wish we would have discussed. We didn't have the opportunity to talk about during the podcast, during our conversation.
Well, I'm a firm believer that who's listening is supposed to be listening, and what was said was what was supposed to be said. So I can't really say that we've missed the mark or we haven't talked about what would be important, because I think that, we're both here to share our knowledge and to encourage each other, as well as those folks that are listening who are part of your network. And I think I'm not disappointed, or I don't think we've missed the mark in any way, would be my response to that one.
Steve, I truly appreciate you accepting the invitation. It's been a great conversation. I really enjoyed the conversation. I hope the audience will as well.
Me too.
How you did mention at the beginning of the conversation, but then I want to give you another opportunity to share. How can someone get a hold of you, like via email or a social platform, or what type of a contact info would you like to drop in here?
Sure, I'm on LinkedIn, obviously. So just look for Steve Wunch on there. My picture is there. You can't miss me. I'm guilty as charged. You can email me at steve@leapeasy.com, or my consulting email is Steve Wunch. That's STEVEWUNCH, like lunch, WUNCH, @outlook.com. I've got a website, stevewunch.com. Leapeasy.com is my company's website if you're interested in learning more about our no-cost solutions to drive profitability and make renting more accessible for your tenants. I'm pretty easy to find.
Thank you again, Steve, for coming by. I truly appreciate you taking the time to be here with me today.
My pleasure.
Everybody, thank you for watching us today. This is Multifamily Chronicles. I'm your host, Adrian Danila. Episode number 36, signing off. Have a great day.